Welcome to another episode This Week in Metropolis. I'm Matt.
And I'm Shattered. This week, we're joined by Pietro Schito, who is a screenwriter for animation and the founder of Write for Animation YouTube channel. He's on to tell us about what makes a good screenplay and also tells us a little bit about what his favourite films are.
But before we let you watch and listen to that, just a reminder, we appreciate every one of you who listens to the show, who watch the show and interact with us online. So please do, if you haven't already, give us a follow, give us a like and drop us a message because we do read them all. So yeah, enjoy the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to This Week in Metropolis.
Okay, welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. We are delighted to be joined this week all the way from Mexico. We are joined today by animation screenwriter and founder of Write for Animation, the YouTube channel, Pietro Schito. How are you, Pietro?
I'm really well, really good. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Did I pronounce your surname correctly? That was
you
what
did.
Was
I was waiting
out.
Because I'm used to every kind of pronunciation, but you nailed it.
Fantastic. Well, I have Matt to thank for that. So thank you.
We did our research.
We did. Pietro, before we start chatting, can you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Pietro. I'm Italian and I'm a screenwriter. I write movies and I focus on animation. And it's not the only kind of movies I write, but I specialize in that because it comes from a deep passion for the craft that I have. I love animation, and so I decided to focus on that and also help others through the YouTube channel and other activities I do to bring more people into screenwriting and also help artists that are already maybe in the animation industry that they want to learn a little more about how to tell a great story and tell their own stories and develop their own projects. And I moved to Mexico about 13 years ago from Italy to join a film project, and then I decided to stay after studying in Los Angeles. I came back here and now working from here for different studios, and the local animation community is really vibrant here in Mexico, and so I'm glad that I'm close to the US, and nowadays we can work from anywhere. So it's a good. I think what was the best decision I took in my life was moving here and finding this community here, and that is really creating great stuff.
Fantastic. Where did your path to being a screenwriter start? Was it with the stories, or was it your love of film as such?
So I've always been like creative, and I remember that it all started the day that they gifted my little brother with a camera, and in 1992. And I took that camera and started using it to do silly movies and with my brothers and experimenting with telling stories and it was nonstop. I would spend the entire day, especially when we were on vacation, like filming stuff. Like we would take our Ninja Turtles action figures and then make them move with stop motion. We didn't have any idea about that stop motion was even a thing, but if we hit record and quickly hit pause again and move a little bit, we figured out that it would like move, and so we had all these silly films and as I grew up as a teenager, started trying to do the same but with more friends and going to an abandoned house and try to film our horror movie, and really fun because you would play any character and you would like invent and improvise on the go. But So I kept like that as a passion for film. I thank my parents because like I was able to watch like all the classics, like all this sci-fi from the 80s and 90s, and I really think that shaped my appreciation for cinema. And also at some point when I was already at a university in Milan, they brought in a screenwriter from Disney, and he was part of a course where we went through like how to tell a story for film. And for me that was like almost having a curtain removed and being able to see something that I had no idea existed. I've always worked on creating stories, and you get to a certain level of like all of them that were really just for fun, but I had no idea about all these narrative elements that you can integrate and learn from Aristotle to more modern writers, the hero's journey. We have YouTube. Now you can type how to create a short film, and then you get all that information. So I had a book about it, but really this writer from Disney opened up an entire scenario for me that was not present at the time. And so I immediately started to read and learn and research, and got into a program that was about selecting people for the Disney Academy for screenwriting. And the animation part started with one day I was traveling on a train, and I saw two animators. They were drawing, and I was really attracted to seeing. They were from Disney as well, and they were. I remember was a pencil drawing of the Little Mermaid and one about Tarzan, and it was like seeing them doing that and asking them about it, and it was that's my job. That I do that for a living, and for me that was really great. So I wanted to be an artist before, but then I realized that I wasn't as good as I thought, but I really found my passion into screenwriting.
So if you, sorry Matt, I was just going to say, so if you was to describe to me what screenwriting is, because you just said that then, and there's an artist there who's drawing pictures that are potentially going to be implemented into the film or the animation or whatever. The screenwriting part, how would you describe what that is to someone who's a bit clueless?
Yeah, that's a great question, because many times we just give that as a fact, as something that everybody knows, and I didn't know it before. We tend to think, and especially in the early days of cinema, that the writer is the one that adds the dialogue for the actors. And it's important to understand that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, before a script. There might be an idea, there might be like an IP that somebody is already taking to develop something new, but you have to create everything. And the dialogue is actually like probably 10% of or even less of the job. You need to create the world, you need to create the situation, you need to create the characters, you need to make them believable, you need to make them endearing and have the audience connect with them, and then create the entire structure of the story. So we spend a lot of time developing the plot and the character's journey, and to figure out exactly what's going on. And every single word, every single detail comes from the script. Then it's a blueprint that gets passed on to the rest of the crew. So it's such an important job, because every single person working on a movie, animated or not, is taking the script as the reference. So the characters, the movie is the script, and then the blueprint for the movie is the script, and then it gets every department adds their own craft, their own art, and make it even better, and or destroy it. Usually they make it better, and you can take a good script and maybe ruin it, but if the script is bad, then there's no way the movie's gonna be good. So it's an important responsibility for the entire production, and that's why I love when a studio puts like the effort that is needed, because it doesn't work on the script, it's not going to work in the movie. So you basically sit down and work with index cards on a board, where you start like trying to figure out like how the plot is gonna work, the character's journey, and then there's a lot of work, and then at some point you sit down to actually type the words, the description, and it's very visual. You cannot type anything that is not something we see or hear on the screen. That's a big difference from writing a novel, where you can get into the character's mind and heart. And in a script, you only write what's on the screen. If it's not there, it's something internal. Well, that's going to be challenging for the filmmaker, for the director to show it. And you can say, for example, the character remembers his childhood and the taste of the cookies that her mom used to bake. Well, unless we go into a flashback, that's many times not a good option. You don't get any of that. And so it's really, really visual. And in animation, it's even more, because it's a strict collaboration with the storyboard artists, and it becomes an amazing process.
When you mentioned sort of the curtain being pulled back when you sort of started learning the craft, did that change the way that you watched films and things thereafter? And was that in a good sense as such?
Totally. Yeah, I think that you can't help but seeing film in a different way, and especially at the beginning when you start. It's very interesting, because at the beginning I didn't have an idea. You just see the result and it feels so natural, and then you realize all the effort and that it goes into making something feel natural. And so you go to the movies and you start analyzing everything, and it ruins for a little bit of time. It ruins the usual movie experience, because you're like, okay, I know what they're doing here. This is the second turning point. This is the low point. The character's ghost is there, and you start like, it's a great experience because it allows you to see it in action in a finished movie. And I think that as you grow, you get to a point where you appreciate the ability to see all the details. I guess I think musicians are the same way, or composers. When you start learning how to write a songs they sound very natural, but of course there's also a structure. There is like different ways to do it, and I assume it's a similar experience. But I think that you get to a point where you can appreciate what you know, but also experience the movie. I also try to reframe myself to be overly analytic when I go to the movies. And lately we were discussing a movie and I loved it, and somebody else didn't, and was telling him I was watching the movie as the audience, and it wasn't like trying to see, but the backstory of the antagonist is not really deep, and this and that. It's easy to fall into like a filter that makes us judge the movie instead of just experiencing it. And but it's great.
You mentioned earlier about traveling from Italy over to Mexico, and you was near, did you say LA?
Yes, I got first to Mexico, and then I received a scholarship to study at the New York Film Academy of Los Angeles. Yeah. And so I moved there for a while, and I think it was an amazing experience, because to be able to stay and study, being in the middle of the industry, and to get to know how things actually work, because you see a lot of difference. And for example, in Italy, and even to some degree in Mexico, where film school, there are sometimes, and I'm not trying to generalize, but sometimes there's a disconnection from the school and teachers and the industry. And what I loved about the New York Film Academy is that they have as a requirement that any teacher needs to be actively working in the industry. So it's not only that you are there in LA, but you also receive classes from teachers that they're actually working in the industry. So because it's easy to get exposed to many myths and things that are not really connected to the real thing. And also we had specific classes and internships and ways to really be there and see how things work, how projects get selected, and really also see the competitiveness, competitiveness of the industry and how projects get made.
Did sort of being in LA meet your expectations as such, or did, I guess the question really is, did the industry in that area meet your expectations that you had?
Well, I was there as an actor. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like really, wow, this is like, it was the first time for me to traveling from Italy, well, then Mexico, and then to the US for the first time, and you see what you used to see in the movies, like, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. And on a professional level, you learn two things that are counterintuitive somehow. Like on one end, you have everybody is in the film industry. The guy at Starbucks, he is probably an actor or a writer, and everybody's trying to get, like, if you're there, usually like many people are trying to get into the industry, and you can easily get discouraged by that because you see like everybody has a script and I remember there was a bank they had a billboard. It was very clever copywriting. They would say, we have more ATMs than unsold scripts. In LA, they were moving, I think, from the East Coast, and they were. I thought it was a clever way to advertise, but at the same time, it was like telling the truth. But then when you get to know people, and that happened after school, you realize that every studio, every major actor, every producer, they're thirsty for a good story. There might be thousands and thousands of scripts, but if your script is good, then they're gonna fight over it to get it. And that is like, you have these two sides of yes, there's a lot of competition, but good stories are rare. And if you have one, then you'll find your way. And so that was something that I always keep in mind. And also, you learn about all like the ladder of you need an agent, and then you need a manager, and then you need blah blah blah. And sometimes it seems like such a long and difficult way. And then you learn that sometimes projects get made because somebody introduces you to an actor or a producer, and then it's more about friendship and creating a relationship than it is like this like system of trying to get into the studios and whatnot.
Was there anyone who you, when you were studying, that you had a close bond with, or whatever, that went on to has gone on to do quite high profile things since?
From film school?
Yeah.
A girl that she was also from she's also from Mexico. She stayed more there, and then she went on to adapting several TV series from the US version. She made the Mexican version, and I know she's still active as a writer. And but that's a good question, because of the about I think it was 15 people in the class. I would say only maybe 5 at most were still working in the industry. So and these are people that paid for like to really invest time and money into learning this. It's really hard. I mean, it's not something that it's it's a hard job, and you need to keep up, and you soon realize that there are so many other things that you could do that to make a living, that it's tempting to just like give up and do that.
You mentioned as well about the disconnect between sometimes, and like you said, not in a too much of a negative way, but in comparison to in the States, in Italy, and even to some extent Mexico, there's a bit of a disconnect with the understanding of it all and what it can offer you. Is that one of the reasons why you've gone into trying to inspire others and help others with your YouTube channel and things like that?
Yes, that is one of the main reasons, because I think that is I see a lot of YouTube channels that are great, and they're very thoughtful about like a film or an analyzing, and I've learned a lot from many of them. I follow them and I watch their videos. What I wanted to do is something a little different, something that when you watch a video you can take home a lesson, and something that you can apply to your story, and also to show the importance of creating a habit to write every day, and to understand that the people that are making the movies we love are not as different. They're not any story at the beginning struggles, and most of the stories we love, they're very bad at the beginning, very, very bad. They're terrible. They don't give up. When you start understanding that that's normal, and it's interesting, because we can rationalize it, but we're still human beings, and when you sit down in front of a blank screen and you know what you're gonna write is gonna be horrible, very bad, and to learn to do it anyway every day, and trying to be humble and not listen to that voice that tells you so many things, you can do anything else instead of writing, and to sit down and write, and then rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and that it starts becoming less terrible, and then kind of good, and then you share it, and then at some point you start seeing what the story is about, and that's something I want to share as well, and to create material to help people really getting into the habit of writing every day.
Are there any projects that you've seen? I mean, I guess this can be as from Disney to even the kind of more independent stuff. Are there any projects that you wish you could have been a part of? I'm sure there's multiple, many. But is there some that really stand out to you?
Yeah, so many. I mean, the studio that I admire most is Pixar. I think that what they did from the very beginning, the foundation of the studio was based on story first. And every studio says story is king, and you see posters at the studio. But what I see from them is a love, and how I see how they nurture the story from the early stage, and they became a model for other studios as well. So it is to be part of a film there. It would be something really, really great, because I have the utmost respect for what they do and how they're like everybody tried to change, and at a time where Disney was like they had some rough patch, like some moments there were that we saw a decline in the story, and then the studio comes with this idea: we're gonna make film that lasts forever. They're classical, and so that's something that I really admire.
I think with Pixar, they have a wonderful understanding of sort of human emotion, and it doesn't matter sort of what character you're looking at or what the premise in the story is. It's still so relatable on many different levels, isn't it? I think that's a real gift. They know how to make you cry as well, very, very, very well, I think.
I also think as well, and I don't know if you two agree, but I also feel like when we were younger, we were probably spoiled with the quality of the film. I mean, when I think back to my childhood, pretty much Disney hit them out the park every single time, from going back as far as kind of Alice in Wonderland all the way, you know, up to Toy Story, and more recent ones from when I was kind of getting just that bit older, but still incredible films going into Pixar. So now, do we kind of look at them films now, and because the bar has been set so high, it's very easy. I mean, I can't remember if it was Pixar, Matt, but that trailer you sent me the other day, Turning Red,
the Red Panda one. I think that is it.
Yeah,
and I can't think what it's called.
I think it's called Turning Red.
And Turning Red, yeah.
Turning Red.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it going, what is it doing for me? I mean, it was a very short trailer, but it didn't kind of make me get excited about it, whereas other films, again, I don't know if that's a Disney film or not, but it's kind of like the bar has always been set, although now with Disney Plus, you know, I mean, we've recently had Luca is one of the ones, The Last Dragon, which I thought was incredible. You know, there's been some really good, you know, top-notch films again.
Yeah, it's a great one. And there are also many independent films that are such like gems that are hidden, and so on. Like being able to do that as well can be like very fulfilling. And sometimes, like when in a big studio, there are other layers that you need to take into account, and it's definitely. But animation in general is very collaborative. So in any studio, big or small, there's always like this sense of working together and find the story. And what I love about the animation as a writer is that compared to live action, where you write the movie, you turn it in, and that's it basically. I mean, sometimes you're on set like to do some rewrites or last minute changes that there because of some logistic things that might happen, or things that are not quite working. And but in animation, what you do, you write a version, and then you send the script to the story department, and they draw storyboards that are pieced together in a way that you can play a reel, and they put temporary dialogue. Somebody from the studio, they sit down and do the voices, and then sometimes you add some music, not too much, and then you play the entire sequence or the entire film. And that is, as a writer, it's such a wonderful experience to before the production starts in pre-production, to be able to see how it's going, because you have ideas, you read it on the page, and it works on the page, works, but then when you see it like in this story reel, they're also called animatic, you understand if it's working or not. You understand if a joke that you thought it was funny is gonna be funny for real. If people don't laugh, there's no way it's gonna work, even with lighting and music and everything. And then you watch these things, it's usually terrible at the beginning, and then you get feedback from others, and then you go back to writing again, and you're rewriting, and this process goes into a circle many times before at some point you sit down and you watch this reel, and it works, and it's emotional, it's funny, it has pace, and that's why animation is so special, because it's something that some live action productions, they do it. I know that some directors, especially when they come from animation or for other reasons, they do that. I know the Mandalorian TV series, they do that, and Dave Filoni comes from animation. Also, the technology like kinds of like pushes them to do a pre-visualization of the entire episode. And a director friend says that there shouldn't be bad animated movies, because you see the animatic before you see this reel, and if it's not working, it shouldn't go into production.
Shouldn't make it past that stage. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that when she was saying it often starts off quite bad. How do you know with the multiple revisions, how do you know what's worth sticking with and making better, and how do you know, well, actually we should just quit with this idea because it's really not working out? What's the point you have to get to with that?
Yeah, I think that it starts with an openness to change everything and anything in the story, even big things, big elements, kind of like, okay, the antagonist becomes the protagonist, things like that. The movie set in modern California, let's set it in ancient Rome, and or like things that drastically change the initial idea. And also it's an attitude of discovery, to kind of let the process reveal what's working. And there are some moments that you're writing and you say, yes, that's it. You feel it. You feel that there's something there. Sometimes you follow that thread and you say, oh no, I had that feeling, but it's not going anywhere. And also to step back and think about the emotional journey. We were speaking about how, like, when a movie makes you cry, it's not because of the strings and the music, and there's a lot of work into creating the character's journey, so that you have such a strong connection with him or her, so that when you get to that point, you cry with them. And so if you focus on the character, then the story kind of reveals itself. And sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you get stuck and for months and it's very frustrating because there's no direct answer there's no test to see if something works. It's easy for a joke to say, oh, are they laughing? Okay, then it works. But even that, like, you need to, even if a joke is very funny, it doesn't mean it needs to be in the movie. And if this can be distracting, or everything, even jokes, usually point toward the character growth and character's journey.
Yeah. And I guess you could say it's funny, but could it be funnier? And,
also, and that's where that's where we're story artists. I love them because first of all, it's such a humble job because they draw and animate things that 90% are thrown away. And also they bring in this physical comedy and visual elements that sometimes on the page they're not as evident. And many funny scenes that we see in these movies we love, they come from the story department of storyboard artists adding their own ideas, and it's really great.
Well, that actually leads us into our next segment, which is
Question mark. Hi gentlemen, thank you for having me on again this week. My question for your guest is, what elevates a screenplay from an average, a good one, to one that is extraordinary or great? What are the kind of characteristics that that turn a mediocre screenplay into a fantastic one? Thank you very much.
question mark.
Yeah, that's a good question, because the answer is definitely not easy. What makes a script great is, I think, when you leave the theater or the watching experience with a sense of that you've learned, you've experienced, not only learned because it's not a lecture, but you come out from the experience with a sense of fulfillment and something that is almost a transcendent experience where your emotions and there is a closure and there is like a satisfaction, and maybe something doesn't need to be a closed ending where everything is clear, but you leave thinking about the movie, and maybe you get into the car with your friend, nobody's talking because everybody is thinking, and that is like the question is, what do you give the audience to bring home? And that's I don't remember who expressed that the first time. I've heard it from Pete Docter, but I think he was quoting somebody else. I'm sorry, I don't know who said it, but this is the question you have to ask yourself. What is something that is more than the story that the people can bring home and stay with it and think about that story and those characters. And there's also something we can do as an experiment that maybe shows that in a more practical way. And like, if you allow me to do like a quick exercise with your audience, and remind me to close this exercise at the end, because we need to leave a little bit of space. And I'd like to invite everybody that's listening to list the movies they watch over and over. That if it's on TV and somebody else is watching it, you sit down and keep watching, even if you watched that movie many times. And also, especially for the filmmakers, switch off the filmmaker judgmental mind that says you cannot put on the list the Smurfs or Spider-Man 3 or whatever. Like
Spider-Man 3.
Maybe they're both great movies, but like if the movie is very commercial, or it's a chick flick, or it's a stupid comedy it doesn't matter, because if you like it, to put it on this list, let's pick 5, and the movies that you watch that moves you, that maybe you're gonna cry each time, and maybe other people that they don't cry with the movie, but you do. And remind me to get back to the exercise later, and we'll give like the reason why I asked you this.
Okay.
Definitely, that's fantastic.
I want to ask you, actually, sorry, Matt, just a really quick one on the spot relating to Mark's question. What's a film that you've recently seen that made you come away with that experience that you mentioned? Is there one that you've recently, and that's asking you on the spot here?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, the movie, as I was telling you before, I was speaking with other filmmakers, and they didn't like it as much as I did, was Luca. Luca, for me, I'm Italian, first of all, and
we won't talk about the football.
Say that again?
We won't talk about the football.
Yeah.
Well done, though.
Thank you. Let's skip that part. I jokingly say that I'm one of the 3 Italians that don't watch football.
I know you said that to me before. I remember.
I told you before, but I did watch the final match. Anyway, the movie, it kind of like, I'm glad that I was able to experience it as the audience, and not like trying to think and correct things and trying to be analytical. And I was mesmerized by the quality of the animation and the craft, so part of me was just admiring like these characters, and I was able to connect with them from the beginning. And maybe a lot of personal things went into that, not only but I really connected with the movie, because I think I know the director also left Italy around, when he was in his 20s, and we're actually he's now on vacation, but we're trying to get him on the YouTube channel to do a full screenwriting specific talk about Luca, and I look forward to that. Hopefully we'll make it happen. And when I moved, I also had a friend like that was like my Alberto, let's say, and we were supposed to come to both of us going to Mexico and start this adventure. At the end, he didn't come, and I went. So many things that, and I spent all my summers at the sea and at like biking and everything. Like it felt very personal. A personal connection, yeah. And so when I heard about all the reasons why some people didn't like some specific things, I said I don't care. I just, my emotions were transported somewhere else, and I was able to really connect, and it was it's great. And I rewatched it many times, and I still get that those feelings. So those are unique experiences, and it's interesting to see how to somebody a movie brings so many emotions, and somebody else's is different. We are all different.
Well, what I was going to ask you about is Star Wars. So, and I can see you have sort of various Star Wars things behind you. And I think I'd like your sort of
there.
A fan opinion, but also sort of, you know, almost your professional opinion. And I love Star Wars, absolutely love Star Wars, and certainly me and James have spoken on previous shows about The Mandalorian and how, you know, fantastic that was to the franchise. But with the actual movies, sort of, you know, that people tend to love the original trilogy, depending, you know, whether you grew up with the prequels. You know, there are mixed emotions about those.
Yes.
And then the newer films, even more so, that, you know, some people loved them, some people didn't like them. What are your thoughts on them? And that was quite an open question, but
right.
Do you think the criticism is deserved on some of the Star Wars, and do you think the originals are as good as, you know, people hold them up to be?
I do think that the criticism is based on facts and on things that didn't work on especially the new ones. But I mean, as a fact, the more you milk the franchise, the more movies, the riskier it will be. It's such a and everybody has a deep connection. So I know some friends that younger that didn't grow up with Star Wars, and it's normal not be. We watched those movies when we were kids and dreaming, and they're so universal, and they're attached to our childhood, our emotions, and that's why I think that most people watched the original trilogy when they were kids, and then the prequels came out for another generation, and then it's hard to judge the new execution when somebody was saying harshly saying, "Oh, you're forgetting these are kids movies," and which is like, what?
How dare you?
How dare you? And anyway, I love Star Wars. I love what they're doing with The Mandalorian, and I think what got in the way was to trying to, like, what I love about The Mandalorian, focusing on the positive, is that they don't pretend, they keep it simple. It's genre. Each episode they explore different genres, but they're not pretentious. They're not trying to send messages. They're not trying to orchestrate something that is needs to check marks, and also think that I love The Force Awakens. I think it was very risky what the writers and also J.J. Abrams tried to do, because it was almost a remake of the first one. But I bought into that, and I think they pulled it off really well. And then you can tell that from interviews with Mark Hamill and also the transition between Rian Johnson, who I think he's a great director, but I think that the transition, something got lost into like a vision of a trilogy that was, and then J.J. Abrams came back and tried to restore some things they didn't like in the studio, and it's really complicated. I think that everybody has a different opinion, and I was able to enjoy the experience and also try not to be, again, not too judgmental on the execution of that. But I do love the Mandalorian. I think is really great, like the simplicity, this relationship with the child, and I think it's like simple and within the universe, and it reminded me of the trilogy of Indiana Jones or James Bond, and like it's a little bit of of different genres in so far. I think they're doing a great job, and I love those guys. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. They're both like they love that world, and I think they're doing a great job.
I think from conversations we've had with other guests who are equally or probably even more into Star Wars than we are, they've said one of the problems or issues that they had, certainly more so with the prequel and then moving on to the newer ones, was that they kept going over old ground when there's such a wide universe there that they can choose to explore if they want to. And I think that's what they enjoyed most about The Mandalorian, is that you discovered new places and new characters. And I think for me personally, that was one of the things that I enjoyed most. I think like I said,
it still existed within the world of Star Wars. There was enough of a nod to sort of, seeing
Easter
a
eggs.
Jawa or something like that, and it was familiar, but just had its own identity, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's always risky when you turn when you turn a movie into a series. By default, the budget is lower and the rhythm of production is higher, and so it's so easy to create something that is kind of like the B version of The Mandalorian, where you see you watch it and it's top notch at every level.
Yeah,
that's what I was
definitely
saying.
Easy. You mentioned sort of Jon Favreau and people like that. Have there been any clear influences with your work, or who you sort of aspire to be at that level?
Again, as I mentioned before, with animation, is to trying to get to emotional stories that are not meant to, like what I like and strive for is to create stories that are universal, and there are also they can be a classic, which is a very high standard, but on a practical level is I try to refrain, for example, from including jokes and things that are like pop culture references, like what's like how many jokes we've seen in recent movies about selfies and things like that, or TikTok and so as I like when there is a movie that you see that it's meant to be something that is a classic and not trying to chase the audience and making like inside jokes of the moment, and so that's why I know that that's part of the DNA at Pixar, and other studios are also doing that. I love a lot of indie stuff as well, that they because you see how personal projects can be, and the more personal, the more universal it will be. And yes, and as reference, and as I said, like Star Wars and all that, the sci-fi era from the 80s and 90s, and I love all those. I also love Italian cinema, and especially when they get to that emotional tones and with very simple stories as well. And I think that there is something that is something to think about, because sometimes films, in animation as well, they try to throw and pack with fireworks and action, and there's a lot going on all the time, to very flashy, and I think there is a space for calmer, more intimate stories that can still resonate even with kids and adults.
When you're writing for a movie, are you imagining or picturing which actors might be in the certain roles? If you could literally pluck Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, whoever, because one of the questions we posted out and asked our audience whether, and thank you, because that was your suggestion to me to do that actually, and one of the questions that kind of cropped up to me was by Work Beats podcast, and they asked, could Pietro pick 3 actors to produce or write a screenplay with, and why?
Yeah, I try to picture a real person, not specifically an actor, but sometimes it's somebody that I know, and sometimes it is the physicality of the person and the soul of somebody else. And but it's important to make the character real. In animation, since they're voicing the characters, I never think about an actor or casting. I mean, I think in terms of who would be great to have here, but it's not as an inspiration for the writing.
Right.
And it's also not up to me, the casting and everything that goes on later. And it's more to get inspired. I think I try to find a mental picture of how the person, the character I'm writing looks like. And sometimes it takes time before getting there and learning about who these people are. At some point, they kind of become your friends, but it takes a while. And in live action, sometimes yes, but it's more like to put a face on a character than it is as like a casting wish.
Yeah, it's funny because we've recently had a few guests on who have been involved in comic books, and a good friend of ours who came on who wrote. He'd wrote a whole story for his comic book, and then it was all illustrated, and he had a vision in mind. We've got that comic book, and then when I look at the pictures of the characters, and I remember asking him if this was to go into a movie, into a live action, I know exactly who you're thinking of for each character because of who they kind of resemble to some extent. And I just wondered whether that would be a similar thing when you're writing as well.
I think it helps because you see the actor is also connected to the character they play. So if you saw Robin Williams in a specific movie, he also comes, it's not only his face, but it's also like the character in that specific movie. And maybe you say, okay, kind of want to write something that is like, I think about Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire in terms of like I think that is, it can help. It's something, and I don't do it like on a regular basis as like a method thing that I do. It's just like I try to attach a face and a personality to the character I'm writing. And sometimes they come with character designs and in a project I'm working on, we had a storyline at the beginning and then we completely changed it. And of course the physical appearance of the character changed as well. It was very, very different. And but it made sense because it's somebody is very confident and strong on the inside, and you need to show it somehow in the how he dresses, how he moves, how he looks at people. And
One quick question before we wrap up tonight's show. You just mentioned there about a project that you're currently working on. I know, because I think when we spoke before, you said you won't be able to tell us exactly what projects you're working on due to obviously the secretive nature of it all. But how many would you be working on at any one time? Is it kind of focusing on one, or would you have multiple to deal with at the same time?
Yeah, ideally it would be one at a time, and you need to be able to work on different stories at the same time. And the good thing is that the projects I'm working on, they are all at different stages, and it's also refreshing to switch from one to the other. And it's kind of a juggling task, like to keep to meet deadlines and all that. But yes, I would say that maybe later with more experience I will be able to take more. But it was really challenging for me to write three scripts at the same time. I think that is kind of my limit right now, where I would say, okay, I cannot take anything else. I once asked on Twitter to many directors, and some of them replied, and writers, and they said, we all wish to be able to work on a single project at a time, but it's normal to do that. And sometimes they come back after notes and that. And yes, I'm writing animated feature films with different styles for different studios, and I hope to be able to share more about those later.
Yeah,
but all very exciting, and with some great news hopefully coming very soon.
Awesome. Well, when you do, please let us know, and we'll be happy to let our audience know as well. Pietro, you wanted to come back to that exercise that you mentioned before we finish the show.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. So hopefully you have a list in your mind or on paper of the 5 films that you would watch over and over, even if it's like a B movie or something that you don't consider artistically great. I would like to ask you to think about the main character and what he or she goes through in the story on a personal and emotional level, and also to try to find something in common in these movies. And if you're a writer or an artist, there is something about you that is very personal, that it might even be surprising to you. There's something that you can see in all those movies, or most of them, and something that moves you. And as a writer, I think that it's a great exercise to do, because it can tell something about yourself that maybe you don't even realize. And those are the stories that moves you. And if you go personal with your stories, maybe those movies can be like an example for you to follow. And it also gives you like emotional experience of what you feel when you watch those is what you would like the audience to feel when they watch what you write. And so that is I remember when we did this exercise, a girl started to cry because she realized something, and it became very personal to her, and so I think it's a way that shows how movies are more than just like something to entertain us for a little while. They can be like some deep experiences that's why we tell stories, like to cope with life and to go through difficult moments, and also to remind us of the joy, the meaning that this time here has. And so hopefully that is something that, and maybe in the comments or people can share well if they found something from that. I would also invite people to interact. I'm very open to answer all your questions on social media and on the YouTube channel, and feel free to. Once in a while I even like, if one-on-one like quick conversation, I'm open to that when I'm available. So feel free to contact me on social media and interact, and I always answer. Sometimes it takes a while, but I do answer all the messages.
Where can they find you? Yeah, is the important thing.
It's everywhere. On YouTube you can find Write for Animation by Pietro Schito. I think if you type Write for Animation, hopefully we'll be the first one soon, but you should find it. And everywhere else is Pietro Schito, Pietro Schito. Not easy to spell, but hopefully you'll find it.
Well, we will put all the links as well for all your channels, your socials, and your YouTube channel as well.
Thank you, and I love interacting with people, and especially sometimes we just need some encouragement to follow our dreams, and so I'm here for that as well.
Well, thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us and our audience today. Thank you so much, Pietro.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Don't forget, if you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe on whatever platform you're watching and listening on, because in that way you won't miss out on any future episodes we put out.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and give us a follow, and you'll be able to keep up to date with all of the latest episodes and posts that we put out there. But thank you for listening and watching.
And we'll see you next episode.